So who is the best platformer? Well, it's none other than my good friend Shovel Knight. No, they got better platforming than Mario, but this is just like if Mario and Mega Man came together because it is amazing platforming with amazing bosses. Now, the platforming and equipment is very simple but also very fun. Now, Shovel Knight has a Shovel Slash that can absolutely demolish anything in front of him, and he also has a Shovel Dive to attack from above. Now, another very important part of Shovel Knight's kit is the relics. Now, he can find relics in really any area where there is bosses. But for right now, we start off with no relics, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about all the bosses, who they are, and what they do. So, for the first boss, we have Black Knight, a classic mirror match. Black Knight actually isn't that bad of a guy, and he's actually not part of the Order of No Quarter with the Enchantress. He's just a knight trying to stop Shovel Knight from going to the Tower of Fate and getting himself hurt. So he's going to try and stop Shovel Knight from even attempting to go to the Tower of Fate. Now, Black Knight's equipment is very similar to Shovel Knight's. He's also equipped with the trowel himself, and he has the classic Shovel Slash and Shovel Dive respectively. But he also does have a couple more things in his equipment. Obviously, he can jump higher, but he also has fireballs that can shoot straight out of his shovel, but can also be deflected back at him. Now, he can also dodge some, shovel dashes, shovel dives. He can do all of that. He does make himself a hard target to hit, but with some well-placed shovel slashes, he's not that hard to take down, and he's still a very fun boss fight to kind of get warmed up. He's my favorite boss fight, and later on, it becomes way more fun and a little bit harder. But for right now, that is Black Knight defeated, and after this defeat, we get a cool little sequence with Shovel Knight as he drifts off to slumber, and we can see what he is dreaming about. Now, this sequence is fun and it happens a couple times. After a couple boss fights, we see Shield Knight falling from the sky to try and save her. Heading into this sequence, this is the first of many. This is where I have to catch Shield Knight falling from the sky. So it's not this difficult right now, but it will get more and more difficult the more times I have to do it. And after that fight, it's time to go to the next knight, which is a member of the Order of No Quarter. As the map opens up, I can see the next one I have to face. The next knight up is King Knight, the decadent dandy, the king of cards. King Knight is probably the easiest knight out of all of them to take down. Now, that's not to say he's a pushover. He does have a lot of skills that are pretty tough to get around. But once you see the actual skills he puts down, it's pretty easy to dodge. Now, he has an assortment of things he can do, mostly just jumping around the stage, but he also has a ground slam, and he also has a dash attack. Now, the dash attack comes out sometimes, and just seeing it, it's pretty easy to dodge. And just going around, King Knight is not that difficult, though he does have his confetti cannons, but luckily I took him out before they can even become a problem. And these little shards of paper do hurt a lot, but it's easy to avoid when you see them. And next is the devious and ever frightening Spectre Knight. So Spectre Knight is a spectre in two ways. He's obviously just a spectre, but he's also a spectre of his former self, being revived and turning into what is essentially a Grim Reaper. He's not as much of a pushover as King Knight is, with a bit more health and also a bit more skills to boot. Now, he does flow around the arena, hovering around, and he also can throw his scythe in many different ways. The real key to defeating Spectre Knight is seeing the trajectory of his scythe, because that's where he's going to teleport next. Now, Spectre Knight usually just kinda stays up at the top of the battlefield so he doesn't get hit from below, so staying at his level is very, very necessary. Now, hitting him out the air is pretty good defense. He also does summon his skeletal army to kind of take out some of the platforms. They're not that hard to dish out, and they're pretty easy to dispose of. Now, right there, Spectre Knight did do his classic Spectre Slash, with his scythe cutting through the air pretty quickly. It's not that hard to dodge and it's pretty easy to retaliate. Now, Spectre Knight does cast a looming shadow over the battlefield, making it hard to see him, but his silhouette is still there. Now with Spectre Knight's defeat, we get another sequence with Shield Knight. Now Shovel Knight drifts back to sleep, and we get another shot at trying to save Shield Knight as she falls from the sky once again. But this time is going to be a little bit more difficult than the first, because this time has more. Catching Shield Knight's going to be a little bit harder for me because now people from both King Knight and Spectre Knight's arena respectively are now coming back to try and stop me. Though it's not too difficult because I can just kind of tank through most of these. I still need to know where she's gonna fall, but luckily I see it and I can catch her pretty easily. Not that bad. Also, for catching Shield Knight, I get rewarded with a meal ticket. It's pretty good. So the next knight that stands between Shovel Knight and the Tower of Fate is none other than the Potion Master himself, Plague Knight. Now, Plague Knight is the master of potions, brewery, and trickery. He has a wide assortment of chemicals and shenanigans to go around. Now, Plague Knight is a very floaty guy, jumping around the battlefield. He's very springy and has a stride in his step, but he also does love potions and explosions. Now, Plague Knight doesn't work alone, unlike this boss fight where he is alone right now, but he does have an assistant named Mona who he's in a very committed relationship with. And these two are masters of their craft, Plague Knight being the potion and kind of exploding maniac, and Mona with all of the setting up everything, and also just with another love of potions. These two have a very explosive chemical romance. Now, when it comes to potions and explosions, Plague Knight's your guy. He knows this stuff in and out. He loves everything to do with it. And that's really what Plague Knight does, vanishing into a cloud of smoke to come back again for another round. And now, not for another Knight of the Order of No Quarter, but just another wandering trader. Now this is Rouse. And he's just a kid trying to help everyone out, but he doesn't really know what he's doing and is very confused. But he does have one hell of a skill set, because he has two boomerangs that are very, very annoying to deal with. And with those boomerangs and his mobility, he is a very hard target to hit. And he's very good at what he does, and it's a very fun fight, and he's just a good guy that's just confused. Now, if you listen very carefully at Ralph's soundtrack, you can actually hear hints of Spectre Knight soundtrack in there, hinting to Spectre Knight being related to Red. Now, the boomerangs aren't the only thing this kid has. He does have a ton of different movesets, like a flying kick that can be absolutely devastating and can hit from pretty far away. He's very precise with it. Also, this backdrop is very amazing, and this is another one of Ralph's abilities, which is his Fireball Shield. He picks up a card and then flashes it, and now he has a ring of fire around him. Now, these fireballs are pretty annoying, not only acting as a shield, but also as a weapon, because they do hurt when hit. So it's kinda hard to dodge and get around all of his abilities, because his moveset is very complimentary. He knows what he's doing. But with a little bit of effort, I can take him out, and also just kinda calm things down a little bit. So after the entire fight and talking some sense into him, he's not that bad of a guy, just a little bit confused, and it's also a kid, so he really doesn't know what he's doing. But he also may become a future knight later down the line, because it does seem like that's the path he's going down, and he also does give me a music note, so he's not that bad. And heading into the next member of the Order of No Quarter with a very dramatic entranceway with a torpedo heading in through the gates of the Whale, a submersible submarine that is filled to the gills with gold. And this whale submersible is captained by the one and only Treasure Knight, whose love of gold takes him far and wide, and who wants to claim the entire seas for himself and claim all the money within it. Now, Treasure Knight does sport a massive hook for a hand. When he does launch it at somebody, he is a very, very well-versed person when it comes to the underwater. He's very good at what he does, and he has stockpiled a ton of gold and other trinkets, his submersible being filled with gems and golds and treasures. That's why he's called Treasure Knight, because that's the only thing that he really wants to collect. But with a cold, swift shovel drop, it's easy to take him out, and I defeated him pretty easily. And now he's staring down at the gold he loves so much. Now we get to probably my favorite guy around. This is Mr. Hat. Now he's not a knight officially, but he does look the part and dress the part. This dapper looking fellow has an odd relation when it comes to hats. He is utterly obsessed with them, and whenever he puts on a new hat or just a different hat in general, depending on that hat, determines how he can fight. He gains new abilities with each hat he puts on in time. Now, other than just a hat obsession, he also does just have an amazing fashion sense. I mean, just look at him. He is extremely dapper, and he knows exactly how he looks and how he wants other people to see his fabulous designs, since he is the owner of a hat shop, but also just a design and jewelry shop as well, all mixed into one, but mainly it's a hat shop. Now, he does get upset when his hats are bought out, but he still does love taking hats from other people. He will steal, fight, and just do anything to get someone else's hat or helmet. Really just about any headwear he can get his hands on, but he is still a great fight to go around. So we go from one of my favorite fights to one of my least favorite. To be honest, the Baz fight isn't bad, it's just Baz himself. I don't know why I got a chip on my shoulder because of this guy. I think I just don't like his attitude, if I'm personally honest with you. But he is an incredibly fun fight with some incredible moves. Now, Baz has the ability to control lightning. Now, it doesn't seem that hard to dodge, but paired with all of his other attacks, the additional lightning actually does make it a tad bit harder to face him. So, the Baz fight isn't that difficult, but when he's swinging around at the top of the stage, it's kind of hard to hit him because I need to be close enough to hit him, but far enough not to get hit myself. And when he's constantly moving, and when I'm in the air, it's hard to kind of dodge it, it gets a little annoying. And then when he goes into his second phase, it's kind of hard to get close to him because there's just random lightning bolts everywhere. And trying to hit him when this is happening, I just get hit with a stray lightning bolt across the face a couple of times. But, you know, getting to the end of the fight, it's not that terrible, it's just a bit annoying. And with Baz being defeated as another wandering traveler down, I don't think he takes the loss too well. So the next Order of No Quarter member is Mole Knight, a knight that is very prolific in digging up holes and finding ancient cities, raiding them, and taking whatever he wants. This man has a proficiency in taking what isn't his. So not only does he take things from these ancient ruins, but with the force he does going through these, he destroys everything around him trying to get to the treasure. So he does ruin ancient monuments and also ancient structures. So Mole Knight goes around just kind of crushing everything in his path, trying to take everything for himself and using these ancient cities as his base of operations. And he is skilled at what he does, which is, you know, finding ancient cities and taking them over. He's still easily dispatched and taken down. It's not too hard to fight Mole Knight, but you know, he does have some tricks. So going back into another section where I have to catch Shield Knight, this one's going to be a bit harder because now it's from people from different sections of bosses. Now this is gonna have some Mole Knight people in it, some Plague Knight people in it. It's gonna be a lot, and to be honest, it's just gonna get more hectic from here. Starts off with a little bit of, you know, armored guys, but then it comes into birds, bombs, and everything in between. Basically just a lot of things thrown at once. It's pretty difficult to see what's going on, but once like one or two guys get taken out, it's not that difficult. And it's pretty easy to find and catch Shield Knight for me. So I get to do that, and that's basically that section, and another meal ticket down and out. So this boss is probably the spookiest side boss of them all. This is the ghost of the Hall of Champions. Now, it's an accumulation of all the ghosts within it, and presumably is the ghost of the people in the Hall of Champions. So now they're coming back to claim what's there. So I can't really hit this boss with a shovel because it will just phase right through them. I have to use these light balls to actually at least dissipate them for a while. Think of this as like a more violent exorcism where I'm just kind of running around with some crystal balls that emit light when I hit them, and then throwing it at the Spectre of the Night. So it's not that hard to really get him in a spot and then hit him with the balls. It's just kind of a juggling act. Though I do like this little trick where he kind of separates into many different versions of himself. It's basically just illusions, and there's only one right one, but it's kind of hard to tell which one he is because they all look pretty similar. And sometimes he'll just stick to the top, so I have to like juggle it twice to get up there. It's not too difficult. When he goes into the circle motion, it's hard to time, so I'm just gonna kind of phase through, kind of use his own tricks against him. But with the boss almost defeated, it's just time to keep juggling these balls in the air just so I don't get hit so many times. And finally, with one more hit, I can just kind of throw it into the middle of all of the specters, and then exercise the one ghost. He'll probably come back again, but until then, the Hall of Champions is safe for at least another day or two before he comes back. So now, in a new part of the fields, we can see Black Knight talking to the Enchantress, and this is going to lead into the next version of Black Knight, which is him just a tad bit stronger and a little bit later into his journey to the Tower of Fate. So he's going to be a little bit more souped up than last time, and he's going to be a little bit harder than the last time. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but not too difficult from the first time I fought him. So it's just trying to go in and dodge all of his attacks. No, he has everything pretty similar to last time, but he has a quicker dodge. He can also shovel drop a bit faster, and he has more fireballs. Now when he's jumping, he has this kind of after image effect. I don't know if I can really hit that. I never really tried. But it's basically just the same part as the first one. He just has more health. He also has this one attack where he kind of shovels up a ton of dirt and then chucks at you. I'm not that great at dodging this attack because, to be completely honest with you, it's a bit of a weird one. So I just try to dodge it as much as I can. And then his fireballs can knock him right back if I hit him at him. So it's just kind of a tug of war scenario where I'm just trying to hit it as fast as I possibly can. And I think he can deflect it like 3 times, maybe 5. And he's really fast with it, so I just need to beat him sometimes. It's not that difficult. I have as much health as he does at this point, so I'm also pretty powerful at this point. And then when he's doing this attack, I try to fireball him, but he can do exactly what I can do when it comes to projectiles, and I can just hit him out the air, so he's an exact mirror match. And then I try to ping pong this fireball again. Doesn't work out this time. It was really good the first time though, so you know, at least I got it that first time. But with one last hit, that's him knocked out, and he'll probably be back for a third time. So it's just knocking him out one more time, then he gets up and runs away, just like the last time. But this won't be the last time I fight him. So now we get to one of the most intimidating knights of the Order of No Quarter. This is Polar Knight, and he's not intimidating because of the size of his shovel, or his strength, or his brooding size. It's that he can put spikes on the ground that instantly knock me out, and I have to come in and fight him. Now, when the fight first starts off, it's nothing that bad. It's usually just some snowballs that I can just jump over. And to be completely honest, it's not that hard to dodge a lot of them. Now, I do get hit when they kind of fly in the air a little bit, but other than that, it's not too hard this part. If it was just this, I could easily take him out. But he can also just dodge the shovel drops, which none other knight can really do. Other than Baz that can put his last on the air and then juggle it like that. But here's where the actual kind of hard part comes in. This is the spike. Now, these spikes are just like every other spike. If I hit them, I get knocked out and I have to go back to where I started. Now, usually I use the Medallion of Invincibility, which, you know, it works out pretty well. And, you know, at least Polar Knight's somewhat nice when it comes to covering up some of the spikes, so it's not absolutely impossible to take him out, but he's still pretty deadly. But in this fight, I didn't really have to use the amulet too much, so I was just easily able to take him out. And when he does his shovel dive, I do my shovel dive on top of him because he can't block, and that's how I get. So in this beautiful landscape, we have the Phantom Striker, a wandering traveler, testing people's abilities to see if they are a good fighter, and he wants to test my ability. And I think Phantom Striker does look really cool. I am a sucker for blue capes, and I think he just looks really cool, and he knows what he's doing with his outfit. So I'll give him props for that. And he has the whole fencer aesthetic going with that lance. And then we can see his abilities. He is, you know, a master of lightning. He can just kind of throw that out and just use it to his advantage. If I'm to be completely honest, it's pretty hard to dodge when it's just kind of heading at you really fast. And Phantom Striker is really good at what he does, which is fighting. He has a lot of lightning abilities, which makes it hard to even get to him. So I'm just trying to, you know, get some space on him, just kind of hit him a lot. But he still hits me a ton of the time. I'm going to be completely real, he is kind of difficult to go after. I still think I did pretty well against him, and unlike everyone else who just kind of falls over when I beat him, he does land a really cool handstand. So I think that he is just kind of really cool. And I think I did really well against him, but I did get hit a lot at the end there. So the next knight of the Order of No Corner is Tinker Knight. Now he's more brains than bronze, and he really knows how to show it. Because he's a master of mechanics, and he knows how to make mechanisms of destruction. He's really good at what he does, and that thing is making big scary robots. But he also just likes throwing around wrenches when he's panicked, so he's not really that intimidating by himself. He really only is intimidating when he has one of his machines with him. His whole thing is that he has a massive clock tower in which he just kind of builds all of these contraptions in. And beating him in his first little fight with just his wrenches isn't enough. He has to bring out his giant mech, and to be completely honest, it looks very intimidating, but it's very easy to get around. It's not that hard to kind of beat it up and break it. It's not the hardest thing to dodge. It's very simple. I mean, you have the 3 missiles coming out the shoulder, but if you know how to dodge the one, then the whole fight's pretty solved. Now, it's not the hardest fight. He is pretty intimidating, and for, you know, how smart he is, I just kind of stood still for the whole fight. But, you know, if I didn't stand still for the entire fight, this would be a lot harder of a fight because, to be honest, it's a very, very good looking mech, and it does have some serious weaponry to it. I just kind of knew how to get around it because you just kind of stay up. And then we get to probably my favorite knight. This decadent guy is Propeller Knight, and he loves all things glamorous and gold. He is the king of the skies. I like his big propeller hat to keep him elevated. He does look pretty cool. Now he does have that nice vest going, which, to be honest, he just looks cool. He looks fancy. He knows what he's doing, and he does it well. Now, he likes flying around in airships, and hey, I can't blame him. It looks really cool up there, and I guess I would like to also be in an airship because I think they look cool and are cool. So I can get along with this guy. I mean, he's probably not the best person to be around, but he's pretty cool nonetheless. He also has an armada of airships kind of just going around at his beck and whim, trying to just do whatever he wants, really. He has just massive airships with big cannons and big cannonballs, and he does love just showing them off. It is a pretty cool way of doing it. He's not that hard of a boss, but his artillery is pretty impressive, so you have to give it to him. And we're back here with Shield Knight falling from the sky, and to be honest, this is going to be a little bit harder than the previous times, because now we have enemies from every stage I've encountered, from Polar Knight to Tinker Knight. It's just going to be pretty complicated all around. The Propeller Knight guys, they're not that hard, and to be honest, once I kind of learned that the horn was the best way to deal with this didn't become complicated at all. It just became pretty easy, so I was just able to wipe out every enemy around me and catch Shield Knight. Not that hard. It's just kind of a fun thing to do in between, you know, beating all of the Knights of the Order of No Quarter. And now we get to the third fight with Black Knight in front of the Tower of Fate, or at least the entrance, with this backdrop of a toxic rain with the Enchantress interjecting. And here's where we see that Black Knight really isn't interested in the Enchantress's advances of joining the Order of No Quarter. He kinda just wants to save her from whatever happened to her. So now she imbued him with a little bit of her power to get a taste of what she can do to kind of tempt him into the Order of No Quarter. And if I'm to be so real right now, Black Knight is really cool in this fight. I mean, he has all the tricks up his sleeve, he's dashing everywhere, he just kinda looks cool. He's better all around, and he's just a lot more powerful, and he has wings. I mean, look at him flying around the stage. He looks like a true rival. He looks amazing, and he can summon meteors out the sky. Now, this is just extremely crazy what he can do. I mean, him just kind of shadow stepping through, phase stepping around, it's pretty cool looking. I mean, hell, I'm a big fan of just like cool flying guys, and he's a cool flying guy. And I think Black Knight just all around is just way cooler in this fight. I mean, he can break apart meteors and then chuck them at his enemies. That's really cool and dope. I'm gonna be so real. He's just kind of baller in this fight, and he can just launch meteorites at people. That's so sick, and he's always had wings too. These aren't like an Enchantress exclusive thing that she gave him. He always had them, he just never used them. So I just think that's also really cool that he just always has these wings and then chooses not to use them. But that is Black Knight defeated for the third time to go to the Tower of Fate, and now that I'm here, I get to enter the Tower of Fate. But you know, he's still trying to talk me out of it, but then he explains why he's protecting the Enchantress, because it's not the Enchantress he's worried about, it's Shield Knight. And that's kind of the big turnaround, which is the Enchantress was just possessing Shield Knight the entire time. She wasn't gone, she was just possessed, and now she's just kind of going around, and the Enchantress is just using her. So now I gotta beat the hell out of the Enchantress to get Shield Knight back. So it's time to enter the Tower of Fate and take her on a one-on-one. And now it's time to face the greatest challenge yet, which is the entirety of the Order of No Quarter. Each one of the Order of No Quarter foes that I have faced so far, I need to beat again, and just kind of put them in their place and show them that I mean business. And I'm going to take down every member of the Order of No Quarter back to back to back, Battle Royale style, and win this fight. And as you can see those floating bags in the sky, that's just because Polar Knight made me stub my toe on a spike, and to be completely honest, that's the one thing about Polar Knight that I kind of despise, is that he just has spikes that you can just kind of fall on. It's not that difficult, it's just a little bit infuriating. But it's not that big of a deal. I'm back at it, and my first opponent is Treasure Knight, the king of delving the depths trying to find treasure. And as long as I stay to one side, Treasure Knight's not that difficult to beat. He's actually still pretty easy. So next up on the order of no quarter is Tinker Knight. Now, he's still not, intimidating at all. He's not that difficult to beat. He's probably the easiest member of the order of no quarter to take down. Not just because all he does really is throw wrenches. Also, his devious contraption also isn't that hard to take down. And all these fights with these order members are gonna be pretty much the same, but now I'm just a little bit more powerful and I can just take them down pretty easy, or at least easier than I did last time. But he does bring his mech into this fight, and I'm gonna beat it exactly the same as how I did it the first time, which is just stand on the shoulder of it, dodge the one missile, and that's really all I need to do to take down Tinker Knight. It's just kind of a waiting game at some point, and he takes a long time to kind of back up and shoot all those missiles out the air. So it's not that difficult to really beat him. It's just kind of staying up and then just timing my jump. I did mess up here, so I'm just gonna have to get back up on the lance. It's not that difficult, it's just timing this kind of ball jump. It's not the worst. It's a little bit more difficult than the missile jump, but it's still the same jump. I did do it a second time though, so I'm gonna need to perfect this jump at least a little bit. But even when my timing isn't the best, it's still easy to get back on this mech and just take it out and just wipe it and explode it. And here is Polar Knight. Now, Polar Knight was the one that made me, stub my toe and made me drop my money the first time I fought all these members of the Order of No Quarter. Not too difficult. I was just kind of laying them out. He was kind of the first member of the Order of No Quarter I fought during this. So I'm just going to be a little bit more careful with these spikes. It's not too difficult to absolutely demolish this guy. I'm just going to have to kind of stay close to him and use that amulet to not get hit. And then the return of the decadent dandy, the king of cards, King Knight. He is also not that difficult. It's kind of just the same time I fought him the first time. I mean, I did get hit once, which kind of sucked. But it's just King Knight, but again, and I still do like King Knight. He is really funny. I don't, like him as a person, but I think he's funny nonetheless. And I get to actually see his confetti cannon go off and actually, be a little bit difficult to dodge and avoid. Because I'm not really paying attention to the confetti, I'm paying attention to him. But, he's not that hard to take down. And then we have Mole Knight, and Mole Knight, the one that takes over every single ancient city that he finds and uses as base of operations, now is with the rest of his Order of No Quarter buddies. He's not that difficult, it's just kind of finding where he is and then staying on top of him. Really all he's good at is mobility, so it's not too bad. I mean, his fire is a bit annoying, and when he turns invulnerable to my shovel, that kind of sucks a little bit just because of all the fire. But it's not that difficult right now. It's just him kind of gliding, and then when he does this, if I'm right on him, he can't dodge or do anything to me. So I'm just gonna hit him with my shovel a lot. And then the Spectre. He has his giant scythe and he's ready for round 2, which to be honest, he kind of deserves, because I did beat him up pretty fairly the last time. So he's going to be coming at me with full force, but it's going to be the same attacks as before. I know where he's going to throw that due to how he throws the scythe. I know where he's going to be, so I'm just going to preemptively hit him before he even gets there. So he's just going to keep chucking his scythe along and just trying to hit me, but it's not going to work. I mean, it's the same as before. He's just kind of a little bit, more different arena. But it's the same attack. He summons his skeletons, he throws his scythe. Nothing too new here, nothing too different, but it's still an exciting fight nonetheless. I mean, when he does that little, slash, I think it's pretty cool. I think you should do more of that. When he turns off the light, it doesn't really work in this arena because I can see him the entire time. But, it's a cool trick nonetheless, but I still do beat him out of it, so it's not that difficult to do. And then we come to the Master Alchemist himself, the absolute trickster of a man, which is Plague Knight. Now, I'm a bit more equipped to, fight him than last time, because, Plague Knight's kind of the one knight that always kind of messes me up, but I still do know how to take him out, and I still know how to beat him pretty easily, and now the fight's going to be even more easier, just because I know what I'm doing and I know how to mix him up. And, you know, he's still pretty difficult with all of his explosions and basically just making the arena one big demolition derby. But with him defeated, that leaves one Order of No Quarter member left, which is Propeller Knight. And I just fought Propeller Knight not too long ago, right before I even came to the tower, so it's basically the same fight, but again, and after beating every other member of the Order of No Quarter. So, to be completely honest, I'm just gonna do the same thing I did before, which is just use the Blast Horn and just kind of get right next to him so he can't avoid me. Even when he's high up in the sky propelling his heart out, I'm still going to be right there. So the bombs are really difficult to kind of navigate around, but he's not that difficult of a fight. And now I have a choice. With all the members of the Order of No Quarter dangling off a chain, I can choose to either save them or leave them there. But, you know, I do like them. I think that they are fun to have around, so I am going to pull them up. So, you know, I'm not that terrible. I'm just gonna save them from their own doing, really. And I'm just gonna move on with my day. But, you know, talking to them and realizing that they have errors in their own ways, you know, I gain a new respect for them. I also do like Plague Knight, even though he is kind of still scheming against me. And, you know, it's just gonna be a fun time. And now for the Enchantress, the leader, the start of the Order of No Quarter, is now just revealed to be Shield Knight being possessed by the Enchantress, an ancient sorcerer bent on taking over the world. Now, I'm not gonna lie, most of the lines she says are pretty cold. She is pretty baller in her own right. I mean, her just kind of saying, yeah, I possess your best friend and I'm gonna beat you up, is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the Enchantress is a terrifying person, but you gotta admit, she does have some pretty cool lines, but she's not the most difficult person to take down. I mean, she definitely has her, like, feats and everything when she's possessing somebody, but to be completely honest, the most terrifying thing when fighting the Enchantress for me is the pit below. And the way she like zooms around the arena and then just stays on the bottom. So if you do want to hit her, I gotta get all the way to the bottom and then juggle through the abyss. She almost had me there. I had to use the amulet to stall in the air because I didn't have the propeller dagger out. I mean, it's just a terrifying fight. Not because her attacks are powerful, it's just because she's, you know, standing over a giant pit of death. So it's not that terrible to fight her in this arena, but it's just I gotta be a little bit more careful. When she just breaks all of the floor and then isolates me into one part, it's kind of terrifying for the most part. But at least she's kind enough to rebuild some of the arena for me. I mean, I know she's trying to attack me and engulf me in a ball of fire, but you know, it's a nice gesture all around. And now she's at the bottom of the arena to kind of just stall me out a little bit. I mean, it's a smart play, really, just kind of, you know, wiping out the entire arena so I would fall in. I mean, that's kind of the win condition. I'm gonna be so real. But, you know, she is still pretty powerful. I mean, it was quite perilous right there. And she's still on the bottom, but now she's revealing herself. So all I really need to do is hit her when she's on the upswing. And now with the Enchantress defeated, and now she's just going to eject right out of Shield Knight. And now all I have to do is catch Shield Knight. Pretty reminiscent of all the times I did it before, but now this time for real. This is the real Shield Knight. So I'm just gonna need to catch her this time, and I do, pretty successfully. But this isn't the end of the Enchantress. This is really just kind of another phase in her plan, because now she's out of Shield Knight and she has a new form. This is the Enchantress, but now she's been unleashed. To be completely honest, I think she's a little bit more powerful in this form, because she's just kind of a massive witch with just, you know, a ton of fireballs. But now this is the first time I get to fight with Shield Knight, which, to be completely honest, is gonna make this fight a lot more easier, just because Shield Knight is pretty good at what she does, which is, you know, using that shield. And she's also an amazing fighter in her own right. Now, this fight isn't actually that bad, I just have to rely on Shield Knight and use the power of friendship to absolutely demolish this Enchantress, because to be completely honest, all of her attacks aren't that difficult, she's just kind of high up and I don't got the hop like that. I need to use the power of friendship to absolutely demolish her. And with some attacks like that, I can't even dodge them, so I need to rely on Shield Knight to absolutely tank those hits and use that shield to absolutely just protect me from any blast. And the scariest thing that the Enchantress can really do is just break the platform so it's harder for me to get to her face and then hit her and, you know, just kind of slash her with the shovel. And some attacks are easier to dodge. I still have the Phase Locket, which makes every fight kind of a little bit easier because, you know, projecting into the astral realm to not get hit is a pretty big advantage, I'm not going to lie. But, you know, it's still fair game, because when the Enchantress can do stuff like this, I think I'm allowed to use a Phase Locket here and there. So, you know, if she can do that, I can do what I can. And, you know, sometimes, you know, the shield jump isn't the best, but, you know, it's the try that counts. So I'm just gonna have to wait until there's a good opportunity to absolutely wall up this Enchantress. I don't get a lot of good hits in, and a lot of her attacks are kind of hard to dodge. I mean, this one is always the one that trips me up a lot, just because of the way the orbs move around. But, you know, it's not that difficult of a fight. I mean, she just kind of has a lot of power behind her, and being trapped in an amulet for so long, you would think that she would have at least a little bit of time to plan some attacks up. So this is where the Enchantress defeated, but that's not her final attack. She does have one, like, rage attack where she just kind of wallops everyone with the power of her might and uses all of her power to get one last shot in there, because she's not going down without a fight. But luckily the homie Black Knight is here to get me out of harm's way, and Shield Knight's going to tank this hit. But I have a feeling that Shield Knight is going to get out of here just fine. Nothing's really going to hurt her, but this is still a cool scene to get out of. And with that, the Tower of Fate crumbles under the weight of that epic battle. And also Plague Knight exploding the bottom floors. That happens with Plague Knight and his whole thing. But with that, the Tower of Fate collapses and the day is saved, and everyone gets out pretty easily. And with the defeat of the Enchantress, so does the tower fall, and we get to see everything that the other knights are now up to, with the beginning of Prime War Keep, with the original king now back in power, and King Knight now suffering for his wrongful doings and the consequences of his action. The Truffle Pond is as joyous as ever, now with 2 people dancing instead of 1. So, you know, an all good place all around. And it seems like everyone is enjoying themselves over there, so I feel like it's a lot better. And then we get to the Lich Yard with Spectre Knight now doing a party, it looks like, with Spectre Knight now just playing some party games. And he doesn't seem to be as good at it as I was with the potion game. He just kind of fumbles around with it a little bit. And then with the Iron Whale and Treasure Knight now has to pay more than taxes. He has to pay all the debt he owes everyone. And if I'm to be completely honest, I kind of like this look of that hole, other than all the gold stacked up. I think that looks a lot cooler. And then the Explodatorium with Plague Knight. Now, Plague Knight is still a master of potions, and to be completely honest, he wasn't like a full member of the Order of No Quarter, so he's just doing potion classes and just, you know, living his life. And then we get to Mole Knight in the Lost City. He's not ruling it anymore. He's now just doing cave expeditions. I think he's just kind of like doing tours around these ancient cities, which, you know, I can get with. It seems very fun. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of spelunking, so anyone can just do what they want to do. And then the Wandering Travelers. Now, the Wandering Travelers were Rout, Baz, Mr. Hat, and then the Phantom guy. So all around pretty good. So now we get to the next one, which is Propeller Knight and the Flying Machine. Not much has changed for Propeller Knight. Now he just doesn't have a fleet anymore. but he does have his one ship that he is very loving towards, and now he just hosts parties over there. So, you know, not that bad all around. And then we get the Tinker Knight with the Clock Tower. Now, the Clock Tower actually isn't that bad. Now he's just using it to make toys for children. So, you know, a lot more of a step down than making killer death machines, but I like it more than, you know, him trying to murder me. And then we get to Polar Knight, which is just having us sit looking at the Aurora Borealis and pondering what the hell he was doing with the Enchantress. So, you know, pretty much a good ending for him as well. I feel like everyone is better off without the Enchantress, and I think it just was a lot better. So, yeah. And then we come back here with the campfire that I know and love, with Black Knight being here and just kind of reassuring me that we'll meet again. And, you know, I really would like to meet Black Knight again because he is really fun, and I don't doubt that this is, you know, the last time I'm gonna see Black Knight because he's cool. And Shield Knight's okay. She survived the encounter with the Enchantress. She did lose her shield, however, but to be honest, we can just get a new shield. It's not that bad. So with that, both Shovel Knight and Shield Knight got out of that pretty unscathed, and I think that's pretty cool.